Buenos días y bienvenidos. Good morning. Welcome, welcome. Oh, it is so good to see you all. You are a gift, and we're glad that you're here. We also want you to know that love is the spirit of all souls. Welcome home. Welcome home. In this moment of our shared journey, may you feel witnessed and honored wherever you are on your spiritual journey. May you remember that whether you're here for the first time or the thousandth, whomever you are, whomever you love, whatever your ability, gender, beliefs, political affiliation, or documentation status, you are welcome here and you are never alone. I invite you now to please rise in body or spirit and greet your neighbor, especially our new or returning folks.
Good morning, and welcome to all of us who are here in the moment and those who will be catching us a little bit later on YouTube. I am Emily Salinas. My pronouns are she, ella, and I will be serving along with Miss Annalise Kinslow as your worship associates for today's service, together with Nancy Olson, Director of Children's and Community Programming, pronouns she, her, and Reverend Katie, our senior minister, pronouns she, ella. We will be your worship team on the chancel today. If you are visiting us this morning, we're glad you are here with us. People of all ages are joyfully welcomed in our service. However, there is nursery care if that's a better option for you. At the end of your pews, you'll find a connection card. I invite everybody to please fill this out. It helps us know how to best stay into contact with you and to support you on life's journey. We also have a caring team. The caring team is an extension of the ministry team and is here to support you. You can reach them by writing a note on your connection card or by calling 317-210-0121 and leaving a message, or of course by email at pastoralcare@allsoulsindy.org. Thank you again. We welcome you.
So last week, I announced that our staff team is complete, and I want to introduce you to our new coordinator for membership and communications, Dorian Condre. We're so glad you're here. Dorian's going to be floating around in Harris Hall after service when we're having fellowship time so you can get to know them. And, I know we all have lots of great ideas, but Dorian will be settling in for the next couple of weeks, finding light switches, finding where things are in our Google Drives, and learning a bit about us. And so a little bit of settle-in time as we start to move gently into action. Welcome, Dorian. All Souls knows how to do a warm welcome, I'll tell you. Spiritual Conversations is happening at 11:30 today in the BD room. I'll be there to meet you, so if you want to talk about a spiritual encounter that you've had, if you're interested in having deeper spiritual conversations, come on up to the BD room. It's right outside my office. I turned the AC on so we won't all melt. It's up the stairs on the 3rd floor. Now, we also have Makerspace after service and after Harris Hall today at 11:30 for Faith Formation. So anyone who's participating in Makerspace, do check that out as well. And you'll see Nancy Olson and Amanda and Pat Fisher and some other folks heading that way after service. Some of you may have availed yourself of the quiet room this morning before service. Right now, the quiet room is living in where the children's library is on the 2nd floor. But as that becomes a music room and the choir begins to practice in there, the quiet room will come down here to the library before service. And it's an opportunity to reflect, to light a candle, and to just kind of get settled on a Sunday morning before you come into worship. As we move through our time together, let us also acknowledge the land itself and those who have sustained it through the generations. We are upon the unceded land of the Miamia, Kaskaskia, and Kickapoo people who were pushed from their land and whose children have been stolen for generations. As we strive to be a community of justice, may we continue to find ways to make reparations. Let us continue to move into a place of wholeness with these words adapted by the Reverend Viola Abbott.
We are Unitarian. We are Unitarian Universalists. When we lift up our 8 principles, some of us think that of them as a form of theology, but they are more important to our collective than that. They do not tell us what we should believe, they tell us how we should be.
They tell us how we should act in the larger world and with each other. You'll see them on our pillars in the sanctuary. We're brought here today by the fact that Unitarian Universalist has fallen short of the image that is presented to the world and to many of those who embraced this religion.
But as we are also brought here today by the truth that Unitarian Universalism has shifted course toward a place of holiness, a place that perhaps never existed for us. It has been a long and sometimes unforgiving road today, but as we are here today, we are mindful of that past, and because we have hope for the future.
We do, and we want the practice of this faith to be a fulfilling manifestation of that promise.
Open your hearts.
Seek new ways of understanding.
Come,
let us worship together. Thank you.
We have Emily lighting our chalice today. Thank you, Emily. You know, this ritual of lighting our chalice reminds us to continually renew our promises, to live into our covenant, to love into action, and to live out the community of love and justice that we all aim to be. So please rise in body and spirit as we say these adapted chalice lighting words that we have from James Villa Blake, those very same words that we have spoken since 1903, and you are invited to share them in the language of your heart. And if you are at home watching us, please note in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. Love is the spirit of
de
this
iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Vivir juntos en la paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos. Este es nuestro pacto.
Good morning. I just want to say that was my beautiful daughter, Lydia. We do resemble, we resemble each other quite a bit. I don't know if she likes that, but hey, it is what it is, Lyd. Today I offer you all a poem. It's titled, "This Morning I Pray for My Enemies" by Joy Harjo. And whom do I call my enemy? An enemy must be worthy of engagement. I turn in the direction of the sun and keep walking. It's the heart that asks the question, not my furious mind. The heart is the smaller cousin of the sun. It sees and knows everything. It hears the gnashing even as it hears the blessing. The door to the mind should only open from the heart. An enemy who gets in risks the danger of becoming a friend. And at this time, I'd like you to rise and sing as you are able. We are going to sing hymn number 360 in your gray hymnal called "Here We Have Gathered."
Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek it find a kindly word. May all who seek it feel they have been heard. So sorrows and regret. But in the shadows, let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing out in friendship this our heart's own song.
We sound really good today. Look at us, singers, one and all. That's a joy. We set aside time each week to acknowledge that we are a community and we are made up of people living life. And life has a way of gifting us with mediocre days, with days and experiences of joy. And it has a way of bringing sometimes soul-crushing sorrows into our lives. And as a community, we talk about these things, we raise these issues, and we set aside this space to be with them, and to remember that we are not alone as we make this journey. We had an amazing amount of birthdays this week. Began with Crystal's birthday on Monday, and then on Friday, all of these Friday babies had birthdays. Mercedes, Ali, and Gabe, and they are all 28. So happy birthday! We are also present to some sorrows. John Murphy is continuing to recover, and Jane and John do appreciate your cards and your prayers. We are also present to Julica Herman de la Fuente, our multicultural ministry coach, who lost her younger brother quite suddenly last week and has been in Mexico grieving with her family. I know she appreciates our love and our prayers. I also hope we can be present to the gun violence that is happening on our streets every day in Indianapolis. I have an app on my phone that gives me alerts, and there were multiple shootings last night in Indianapolis on our streets. One that woke us up at 1 o'clock in the morning, basically in front of our house, which is rare for our neighborhood, but this is Indianapolis, and it doesn't have to be. And that is our wake-up call. That is a divine intervention, that this is our wake-up call to engage around justice. Can we be present to the systems that give rise of arming us with weapons while taking away our rights? Creating a pressure cooker of poverty and injustice where the bullets are cheap and the price of living is high. We are the change. And it begins in these moments here where we choose to gather to draw the circle wide. So I'd like to invite us into a centering moment and engage where you are most comfortable, whether it's with your eyes closed or staring at the candle, whether it is breathing and picturing or imagining or simply taking in the words and moving with them. Be comfortable and be at ease in this moment. Begin to notice your breathing in and out. Notice the way your lungs expand. Now, for the Greeks, the word for breath and the word for spirit is the same. It is pneuma. So in this moment of breathing, this thing that moves in, as, through, and around us all, this breath of spirit, of life-giving oxygen is moving with us. So let us center ourselves in this act of breathing and breath. And if you are comfortable in this moment, to take a deep breath and hold in your mind a feeling or an image of a time when you felt excluded, I invite you to bring that feeling up with your powerful mind in this sacred space where we can hold these things together. Notice where you feel that feeling of exclusion. And with the next breath, comfort that part of you that feels excluded, that has been kept out of a place, of a relationship, of a religion, or something else. And maybe with the next breath, calling into this sacred space, a time when you felt truly welcome, truly included, that someone saw the good that is in you, that holy spark that our Universalist ancestors say is in each of us, the part of us always calling ourselves to good. Remember that feeling. Where is it in your body? What is that moment of inclusion like? And with each breath, as your lungs expand that feeling of inclusion to fill every cell in your body, maybe from the tips of your toes, moving up through your ankles and legs, into your hips. Maybe with a breath up through your torso, through your shoulders and arms and your fingertips, beginning to move out to the side of you. Maybe it moves up through your neck, through your jaw and your head, moving in front of you, behind you, to the left, to the right, and all around you, expanding breath. This energy of wholeness, of inclusion. And maybe with the next breath, you can expand your breath of inclusion to include your neighbors in front of you, behind you, to the left, to the right, and all around you. Perhaps our neighbors in the earth that we know are there even when we can't see, feel, or touch them, or our neighbors in the sky who are always overhead. And let us hold this space of love and inclusion. Maybe even calling up again that part of us that has felt excluded, and letting the energy of inclusion hold that beloved part of ourselves so that we may heal. May this moment, may this service be a place on your journey of healing and wholeness. And as you journey toward healing and wholeness, may you inspire others to know that they are whole. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you now, as your body feels called, to remain seated or to rise in body or spirit for hymn number 1012, When I Am Frightened.
When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
So, does anyone know what this hijabi is? Do we know what this is called? Ben. Right? It is a good, fun thing to play. This is true. This is true. It is called a Hoberman sphere. A Hoberman sphere. And if you look at it, there's this circle on the inside, but there's all this spiky stuff on the outside. And overall, when you notice it, it looks like a circle. And I bet if there were people inside the sphere on the inside, it might be nice and cozy in there. And they might be saying, I feel so included here in this nice, cozy space. And aren't we welcoming? And I bet so many people would love to join us because we've got this cool thing going on. But the thing is, there's spikes on the outside of us. So the beautiful, loving, welcoming people that are on the inside of this sphere may be doing things either explicitly, so in sort of out loud, whether visually or in an auditory way or physically, or maybe implicitly, so things that they don't even realize they're doing, that are creating these spikes on the outside. Now, a colleague of mine, Abhi Janamanchi, you might remember him from our installation, he asks the question often, are we a sacred society or are we a holy community? This is a question for Unitarian Universalists to entertain. So now, anyone in here remember Fred Flintstone? Right? So if you don't remember Fred Flintstone, there might be something else that will make you think of this. But Fred and Barney, they used to go to this lodge, and there were these secret hand signals, and there were these cool clothes that they would wear, and all of these things that marked them as part of a group. And Fred and Barney had a great time in that space. And I bet everyone thought that they were welcoming to new members as long as the new people did exactly what the rituals and customs of that space were. They were a sacred society, not a holy community. When we draw the circle wide, those barbs go away. and there is space for everyone within. And these little joints, if I had something even cooler, like one of those connector sets that are magnets, we could pull this apart and draw the circle wider still. This is the promise of Unitarian Universalism, and this is the practice. Can we be bad? As human beings, can we be bad theologically? Can we? No. Our Universalist theology says we might make bad choices, we might cause harm, but salvation is for everyone. Covenant is what binds us together. Covenant is our road to redemption. Even if the harm that we have caused is so great, it is unfathomable. We can still create healing. That goodness remains inside of us. And I invite you to hold that as we talk about hard things today. As we talk about how to be a holy community. Holy communities center on something larger than self. And a problem of Unitarian Universalism really started around the Enlightenment, when we decided that the individual was at the center of everything. And our individual development was what mattered most. It's important. Last year, we worked a lot on the work of the Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs, and we talked about how doing our within work, our spiritual practices, our searching, our noticing where we're wounded and where there's room for healing, that is important because that's the self that we live in and bring to all of the spaces we encounter. But it's also important for us to do our work among, to practice living into the promise of our faith in this community, and to practice living it in the larger community. And as a liberal faith tradition, liberal meaning God is still talking or science is still teaching us things, we are called to constantly integrate new information and new ways of being with our systems of belief within, among, and beyond. We are constantly pulling the top off the sphere and growing it wider and wider still. This is not a faith of comfort. Did you know that when you signed that book, when you said yes to being Unitarian Universalist in your heart or in your signature, you said yes to staying uncomfortable? Ta-da! Holy communities don't cater to the whims and wishes of the few. They serve both the singular and the multitude of that special something that holds us all. Now, for some of us, that holy community, that something larger is God or goddess, nature, the universe, the promise of humanity, of the goodness of humanity. It could be community or something else. Unitarian Universalism, it is not meant to be a barbed wire fence. It is not meant to be a thorny fruit, sweet on the inside, edible only by some. No. You may be wondering, are we getting this speech because we've done something wrong? No. We are on a journey as individuals and as a community, and all Unitarian Universalists, and frankly, all formerly and currently white, predominantly white, dominant Protestant congregations are going through this evolution and understanding the divisiveness that implicitly and explicitly lives in our systems. So, have we been implicitly and explicitly unwelcoming as a congregation? Yes, we have. We are not alone in this. And we're doing better. And we need to keep doing better. And the only way we can do better is if we stay uncomfortable and we talk about what better could look like, or feel like, or be like. Something you may not know about your staff team is that Sam, our administrator, is a Quaker. Dorian hails from Disciples of Christ. Gabe, Nancy, and I have all served diverse, large congregations. We all know how to do this work, and it is happening at the staff team level. And if you're with us, if you stay with us, we can help all souls do this deeper work too. Now, some of you may notice we started this work of widening the circle in worship last year. Because this, right here, this Sunday morning, is one of our more prickly and exclusive spaces. What changes did you notice last year? Shout them out. Who noticed some changes? Ah, Spanish. Yes, thank you. More people on the chancel. Good one. What else? Youth worship associates. Boom. Yes. Anything else? Yes. These are some of the changes that have happened. And it brings up questions. I'm going to get into why we've done some of these changes in just a smidge. But it brings up questions about why we even bother to get together on a Sunday in the first place. I invite you to think about why we worship, why we do this thing. Worship, literally, the roots of the word are worth-ship, worth doing. What makes this Sunday time worth doing? Now, there are some Christian pastors, their name are Lyle and Allison, and they're the head of Legacy Nashville, and here's why they worship at Legacy Nashville. It's super clear, they're Christian, they've got this, real good directive. They worship because of God and who God is. God is the creator, worthy of our worship. And they worship him because of his transcendence, uniqueness, and holiness. They worship because of what God, they feel, has done for them. They worship because they feel God in the Bible has commanded them to. They worship God to bless and honor God. That's something larger. They say, we do not worship just because we enjoy the emotion or sensation of doing so. Worship makes us feel good. But that's not our primary motivation for worshiping. We worship because he desires us to, and it pleases him. They worship because they love. They have deep love in their hearts for this something larger they call God. They worship because of how they feel the holy is unfolding on earth. They probably don't do this. And they worship so that they might draw near to that essence of something larger. Some of you are counting how many times I just said God. I know you are. It's okay. Thank you. Thank you. 7. Excellent. 7? Or is it 8? I don't have my distance glasses on, so it's a little fuzzy. 8. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Did you find places of inclusion in how our Christian neighbors worship? And some of us here are Christian. So you're like, yes, I did. And some of us aren't Christian. But can we activate the parts of ourselves that can translate? That can hear words that we are not familiar with, and instead think of a word that is a place of connection for us. So that's part of this work. So when we're not centered, and some of us are a part of dominant culture, and we're used to being centered in everything, and you may not even know that you're centered in everything until the moment you're not centered, and then you're like, what's this about? I feel excluded. But really, it's just because you're not at the center. And part of our within work is learning that difference between being excluded and not being at the center. And learning to activate that part of ourselves that says, hey, this doesn't have to be a spike. It can be a pivot point and a place of connection. When someone says God, I might think the universe. When someone says God, I might think about the holy community that I'm in and the possibility of what we can do together as human beings and how we can save ourselves from the hell that we've created on earth. Why do you come to worship? We are a pluralistic and non-creedal faith. This means that among us are Christians, Buddhists, Muslims, Sikhs, pagans, Zoroastrians, Jews, Protestants, Hindus, science of minders, humanists, Quakers, atheists, and much more among our ranks. And some of us have grown up as Unitarian Universalists. Most who've grown up as Unitarian Universalists leave this faith because we have done a rotten job of empowering our children and youth historically. This is where we fail in practice. And there are those hurt by other faiths who remain deeply hurt. And we want to process that. But when we let those unprocessed parts of our hurt out in communal spaces and say things like, we are recovering from a previous faith, even jokingly, we can cause harm to someone who still holds that faith dear. And that is a sign when we have that hurt and we say those words that there is space for healing, that in that barb, in that spiky part is a connection point to drawing the circle wide. And we are accountable to be in right relationship so we can make that pivot and draw the circle wide. And I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about dangerous theology. I do plenty of that. We need to address dangerous theology, particularly when that theology is influencing policy that is taking our rights. We need to correct that shenanigan. It also doesn't mean that we can't be curious and ask questions about other aspects of a faith, because even if some pieces offer bad theology, it doesn't mean that everyone associated with it is evil. Theologically, for us, that's not possible. And we need to hold on to that, even when it's difficult. Back to worship. I have a confession to make. I am one of those people who does not like the organ. This is one of those things. There's certain things that can split UU congregations. The love of the organ and clapping in service. It's even bigger than is there a God or not. We'll work that stuff out. But it's the other stuff that sometimes gets us. But I will tell you, my very first service where people were going to be in the building right after COVID, I walked in and I heard the organ and I wept. And I thought, oh, this is church. And for some of us, when we hear the organ, we want to weep because we are at church. And some of us, if we can't give an amen in service or a that's right, we feel like we are not worshiping. And for others of us, we might be adjusting to the amen or the that's right. We are pluralistic. It doesn't mean that we can believe anything we want. It just means that there's a multitude of beliefs that exist in this space, held together by covenant. And we need to make space for growth for everyone in that plural space, decentering dominant culture and centering those who've historically been on the margins. And I talked earlier about the white Protestant structure. I had a friend who was a Presbyterian minister, and I all but fell out of my chair one day when he said to me, "We are the frozen chosen." We are the frozen chosen. That was so great. But that whole we need to be quiet in church, children should be in a separate place, we can't speak, we can't clap, don't move, that may make some of us comfortable, but that has grown straight up out of white supremacy culture. Right there, my friends. And we are decentering that. We know that our children, good to see you, Nadia, one of our other youth associates, as well as Annalise. We know that our youth and our children and our young adults are doing work that's so far ahead of where we are as adults that we need to bring them onto the chancel to have a voice, not when we think it's cutesy, not when we think that it's once a year because they're bridging and that's their one single moment to share what they think, but all the time. We have more people on this chancel because you all have a voice. Nobody mentioned that my messages are often shorter. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because I don't have all the answers. I am your resident theologian, and it is my work to help you do the faith formation work along with Nancy and Gabe and Sam and Dorian and the whole team so that you can deepen your theology, our collective theology, and our work beyond. If I just came here and told you what to do all the time, that would really stink. That is an old model that comes up through white supremacy culture. So it's not a question of we miss our heady sermons, there's too many heart sermons. We are centering a communal theology with people of different life stages and phases being involved in creation of the one thing we do each week that is worth doing, our time of reflection together. If you're wondering why we're still shrinking, our congregations are shrinking as our theology expands, and the reason for that is our prickly exterior. We're going to work on that. We've got lots of programming coming this year to help us that helps the better angels of our nature flow through. There'll be no shame sticks. And if you start to feel shame, come talk to me. Don't sit in it. Don't let it fester. I'll remind you how good you are. You remind each other how good you are. As we do this hard work of confronting where we have failed or caused harm and making it right. The good stuff, and you miss this often, is in atonement. As a covenantal faith, our work is in atonement. And it gets scary to talk about sometimes, but we're going to keep talking about it. Now, Pew Research survey has been telling us for decades that another reason that Protestant faiths are shrinking is because there's a growing cohort of people who are identified as not religious or spiritual but not religious. And hello, as a pluralistic faith, that's our niche. That's our niche. So as we get outside this building more and also blow the doors of our building open wide, using those thorns as pivot points to draw the circle wide, over time, we're going to start to grow. Another thing to keep in mind is that families are increasingly multiracial, and Unitarian Universalist congregations have a terrible track record of helping people from non-dominant culture connect their faith to their identity. According to the Widening the Circle of Concern report, and which was written by the Commission on Institutional Change, as well as many other resources I'm happy to share with you, people of color and many interfaith couples are drawn to Unitarian Universalism because of the promise, and they leave because of the practice. Our opening reading implores us. We are also brought here today by the truth that Unitarian Universalism has shifted course to move toward a place of wholeness, a place that perhaps never existed for us as a denomination. It's been a long and sometimes unforgiving road to today, but we are here today because we are mindful of the past and because we have hope for the future. This is a great reason to gather, but we cannot do so in the old ways. The reading implores. We want the practice of this faith to be a fulfilling manifestation of the promise. Open your hearts. Seek new ways of understanding. And yes, last year we did start this process of breaking down that radically white Protestant way of doing worship. And there's a general flow that we will keep. We know, and the Reverend Erica Hewitt talks about this, she's a Unitarian Universalist minister, that when you come in the door, you're sort of out here. You've had your week, maybe there was some traffic. Oh my goodness, it's that time of year when construction springs up overnight. So you might be kind of all over the place. So our worship service starts a little bit out here, gathering energy, bringing you in. Maybe you come in late, and that's okay. I love it when folks come in late. It means you arrived alive, okay? Coming on in, whether you're online or in person, we gather, and then the service starts to narrow. And the whole service is the message, not just what you hear me say. We do our covenant, and we keep going, and then the message the reflection kind of reflects on other parts of the service, so you have something to think about. And then we leave, and it's like the bottom of a chalice. You get ready to go out, but a little more focused than how you came in. That's why we worship as Unitarian Universalists, to come in, to gain a little more focus for our week, to have the space to reflect on our mistakes, the mistakes of others, the joys, the sorrows, the messiness of life, to connect that to our identities, to our communal identity, and to figure out how to be that in the world, okay? And the bilingual aspect of our services, there's just gonna be more. Because Spanish is the second most spoken language in the country, including Indianapolis. Not including Spanish in our services is a thorn. You'll continue to notice less words and less of a focus on one person's theology, more collective work. More music, more movement, more shared ritual, more guest speakers, multiple voices, a larger screen. Live, closed captioning, to be inclusive of those among us who are increasingly hearing impaired and don't use sign language. You deserve to know what's happening in worship. And I often speak from notes, so I can't even share with you my reflection because what's on the page is often not even what I say. We'll have hymns on the screen. And all of this requires your support in terms of volunteerism because Teddy and Gail can't do it alone. We can make it easy. There's even a training manual. You're going to notice more communal pickup song leading. And what we want to normalize is that we're all singers. We all make joyful noise. So even if you didn't identify as a singer before, when Gabe says, come on up to the microphone, come on up to the microphone and sing from the tips of your toes all the way through your body. You make worship worth doing. And it's not all going to be roses. Julika, when she was here, talked about change, and then I talked about the roller coaster of change before I went away on summer break. And, you know, we know when a change is initiated, energy goes up, sometimes frustration, sometimes excitement, and then energy starts to wane, and it hits a crisis point. at the bottom of that roller coaster, and that's when some of us want to cut and run. And if you've listened to the book or read the book Mistakes and Miracles, which was edited by Nancy Palmer Jones and another colleague, you'll know that at the bottom of that roller coaster, particularly when there's leaders with marginalized identity, like most of your staff team, things start to bubble up from white supremacy culture, right? That software that's running in all of us, even those of us who've been colonized. And it might bring up things like, oh, I don't really, maybe they're just not qualified to do their job. Like our qualifications get questions. That's one that happens all the time. Or seeds of mistrust, or maybe this place just isn't for me anymore, or something else. Like lots of stuff bubbles up there, and some people want to cut and run. Some people do it loudly. We're in the Midwest, so I think there's probably more of a tendency to just sort of quietly scoot away, maybe talk to a few friends. But I encourage you to share those thoughts and feelings with the staff team. Talk to us. That's one of the things we're here to do, is support you in that journey. And something else I hope that we can think about, especially when we're in the bottom of that roller coaster. How do we measure joy in this time of change? How do we measure joy? And how do we stay joyful through this change? Because when we're experiencing joy, or another feeling called gratitude, we can often stay in community to work through the hard times. So sometimes what helps me to be joyful is hearing about what's going on in your lives. And that keeps me coming back. I actually keep a joy file. Yeah, there's a file for that. And I open it up, and I read cards and notes and letters from you all and from previous congregations. It's a pretty big, fat file. I love it. So what's your joy file for this congregation? Think about it. Doing this work of worship, doing this work of being truly inclusive, intergenerational, and intercultural means it's going to take all of us to do this work. It's going to take being messy, it's going to take making mistakes, it's going to take making it right. But let's do it together. Vamos, we go. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
Each week, we gather together to align our giving with our values. We give to support the missions and ministries of our congregation and share half of our weekly offering with an organization whose values align with ours. This week, we're going to continue our donations to Faith in Indiana. To contribute, you can gift cash or a check into the collection plate. Or if you are online, you can go to allsoulsindy.org, where you'll find a link that says Give to All Souls Here. Thank you for your generosity in supporting the mission of All Souls and for your continued love for one another and for this world. Take this moment to make your gift. Our morning offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Draw the circle wide.
Choir begins to move to the edges of the sanctuary. I invite you, if you feel called, to join in creating a circle-ish around the sanctuary, because we are going to close this service out together singing Draw the Circle. And if you have the words, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. My personal strategy is always to try to end on the last note. And if you want to stay in the center and just be sung to, please stay in the center and take in the love that is out on the edges. So you are invited to move your body as you feel comfortable, to lift your voices in song as we sing together, Draw the Circle. Draw the circle, draw the circle.
Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. One more time, one more chance for us, right? Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we stand side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. No one stay aside, no one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we stand side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. One more time this part. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle, draw the circle wide.
Yes, that is worth doing. Amen. That's right.